once in a while you get an opportunity to do something pretty cool, and I went down to Boston with my brother and my father to watch my nephew Devin be commissioned into the United States Air Force as a lieutenant, with the keynote speech being by the commander of the Space Force himself. There's my dad right there, who will be privileged to give Devin his first salute, as my father was a career Air Force enlisted man. And this is all taking place inside the State House of Massachusetts, designed by Charles Bulfinch, that famous architectural edifice. So we're going to walk around and check it out and watch the commissioning.
So here in the Hall of Flags, in the state capitol, we're looking at a curiosity. Back in 1990, the state enclosed the courtyard with a roof, designing what they thought would be a very usable space for things like I've been attending today, commissioning for Air Force and Space Force lieutenants. But the acoustics was so awful that they said, hey, we need something to deaden the sound. How about the community's flags? Every town and city in Massachusetts got to have some flags. We'll put those up. The problem was many communities didn't have a flag. And so there were contests of all sorts as communities figured out how to create a flag that they could use in the Hall of Flags. And here in Springfield, Massachusetts, and it's kind of a history lesson here because the lower rung of flags are the earliest incorporated towns. Now, Springfield is 1636, but far to my left here, the first flag, of course, is Plymouth, 1620, followed by Salem. People don't realize that Boston wasn't one of the earliest communities. There were a whole bunch that came before Boston, but some of them didn't survive. Massachusetts has quite a complicated history, and a little bit of that is on display here in the Hall of Flags. I'm standing in the Massachusetts State House in the Hall of Portraits, and what we have on the wall here from John Endicott right through Bradstreet and Leverett and Bellingham and Endicott, another Endicott, are the portraits of the governors of the state of Massachusetts staring down on us. Henry Lane and Wheelwright, John Winthrop. This is so cool. And as I said, I'm here because my nephew is being commissioned into the Air Force as a lieutenant. But the opportunity to walk around in the Hall of Portraits is just totally cool. Here's William Shirley, and you've heard me talk about William Shirley, the governor of Massachusetts and commander of the Northern Department in the French and Indian War, the last French and Indian War. He was the guy who, with Sir William Johnston, Warwahiye, would end up creating what we know as Fort William Henry back in 1757. Although he basically looked at the position and told Johnson, southern into Lake George is the place to build. He himself was out of action by that point. It's really cool to see this stuff. Governor Phipps, there are several Phipps that we would talk about in Massachusetts history. Governor Thomas Hutchinson, whose home was ransacked in a riot in 1765 during the Stamp Act crisis. He was a lieutenant governor at that time, and he styled himself a historian. And the interesting thing was he was planning on writing a history of the great state of Massachusetts, the great colony of Massachusetts at the time. And when the Stamp Act rioters got into his house and destroyed dozens and dozens of local histories of various communities, which sadly means that when we look at Massachusetts colonial history, very, very much has been lost. I like to tell people that we know more about what happened in Julius Caesar's Rome on a day-to-day basis than what happened in Massachusetts and many, many places in the colonial period. Not to say that they didn't keep record, but the record was destroyed by rioters. Governor Edmund Andros not a very popular figure in Massachusetts, or really anywhere in the colonies. Talk about a bull in a china shop. I'm going to have to do an episode on Andros. The Hall of Portraits, governors of the state. So we are in the Great Hall, under the golden dome of Charles Bulfinch's classic piece of federal architecture, the Massachusetts State House, and adorning the various points of the compass.
While the meet and greet was going on, prior to the ceremony, I snuck into the rotunda under one of those velvet ropes. And I didn't know it, but I was with the dignitaries. And just over my shoulder is Chance Saltzman, the operational chief of space operations for the United States. He was the keynote speaker, surrounded by Secret Service agents. And I was basically looking up at the paintings of Massachusetts history, oblivious to the actual history that was under the same dome as me. But the Secret Service agents were paying particular attention to the guy with the selfie stick.
And what looks like Lexington Green. Around me are battle flags that are arranged, flags that were carried by regiments. Here's the 2nd Mass Volunteer Infantry, and 54th, of course, is shown here. 21st Volunteer Infantry. These battle flags were stitched by women of the area. These regiments each were the product of a region of Massachusetts. 104th from the Great War, with the Croix de Guerre, and the 1st Battalion of 211th Artillery, National Guard, Mass National Guard. Here we have a Liberty and Union flag from the American Revolution, and the original Stars and Stripes. It's really, really awesome to walk around in this Great Hall, under the dome. We have a apotheosis over here. Oh, look at John Adams staring down upon us. You've all seen that HBO documentary. Well, there he is, our 2nd president. And the great seal of the state of Massachusetts above. So controversial to some of our woke friends because it portrays a native person. And here we have a monument to nurses who served. Now, of course, Clara Barton from the state of Massachusetts, is from Oxford actually, is one of the first, with Florence Nightingale, great nurses of history. And the mother, one of the mothers of the American Red Cross. Just such an awesome opportunity to stumble and bumble around here in the Great Hall of capital of the state of Massachusetts. One of my proteges, you know him from earlier episodes, Alex Temple, worked here at the state capitol, and he must have been in heaven, standing here looking at, in this case, Brigadier General Thomas Riley Stevens.
If you've been to a high school graduation, those are pretty solemn ceremonies, I guess, sometimes, but they're full of fun, too. Commissioning is a little different, a lot more formal, a lot more full of tradition, and in this case, with the Chief of Space Operations for the Space Force being the keynote speaker, it was a big event. Dignitaries gave their speeches, and we got ready to see Devin commissioned as a lieutenant. My father waiting patiently to give that first salute.
Devin Speck, son of Thomas and Lori Speck, brother of Jillian Speck, West Springfield, Massachusetts. Devin was born on May 18, 2002. Devin graduated from Bridgewater State University with a bachelor's degree in aviation science. He will report to Sacramento, California as a Gold Bar recruiter for 1 year, and PCS to Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi for undergraduate pilot training. Theodore Peter Tona, son of Diane Tona of Worcester, Massachusetts. Peter was born on September 29, 2001. Peter graduated magna cum laude from Bridgewater State University with a Bachelor of Science in Aviation Science. Second Lieutenant Speck's first salute.
And here you're going to get to see my father, a 91-year-old gentleman with many years of service in the Air Force and the Navy, give Devin his first salute. And we all thought that he pulled it off with particular charm and, of course, that old form.
So inside the great hall here in the Capitol, we can hear the sounds of enthusiastic young officers, commissioned lieutenants in the Air Force or the Space Force. Big day for them, and it's a great place to end today's video, surrounded by paintings representing the history of Massachusetts. It's not often that I get out to Boston, although it's only 90 minutes away from Western Mass. The traffic is outrageous. But coming here gave me a chance to bring you inside the State House and check out some of the great historical pieces and memories that it holds. Here in the Massachusetts State House, we have our governors. And here's somebody that people on my channel, I think, will appreciate. John Endicott, the longest-serving governor of Massachusetts, also is the father of the fruit tree in the New World. This is the guy who brought pears, apples, plums, peaches, and cherries across the ocean from England. In his Danvers orchard, he had more than 500 fruit trees, and about 98% of all the fruit trees currently cultivated in the United States are from his original orchard.